Ready when you are, Madam
Okay.
Clerk.
I'll call to order this meeting of the Seward City Council. It's Monday, September 25th, 2023. It is 7 p.m. I believe on the line we have Sam Severin. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Are you?
That is correct. Good
Okay.
evening.
Good evening, Sam. Chief, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Okay, roll call for tonight's meeting. Calhoun?
Here.
Barnwell?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
DeMoss is excused. Finch?
Here.
Osenga?
Here.
And Mayor McClure.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We're now to citizen comments on any subject except items scheduled for public hearing. We do have a couple for public hearing. This segment allows for 36 minutes total, and you'll get 3 minutes to speak. The buzzer will go off after that. And when you come up, we'd like you to give your name and whether you live inside or outside the city limits. People who've signed in will get the first shot. So, Mr. Clerk, who's signed in?
First on the list is Marie Gage.
My name is Marie Gage. I live at 107 Low Canyon inside the city. And I just wanted to say a thank you for Helen Stewart, who's a city employee at Parks and Rec. We work on the cemetery out in Woodlawn, and we had a gentleman that was buried there, Daniel Sullivan, and his fence and his headstone needed redone. I went to Parks and Rec, I went to the railroad, I didn't hear anything back, and Helen said, you know what, I'll do it. And she built the fence and repainted the headstone, and it's just beautiful, and all in her own time. She didn't do it during Parks and Rec time. So I just thought I wanted to say thank you, because she went above and beyond, sorry. And then if anybody went to the football game on Saturday, oh my gosh, that was wonderful. There was one kid getting tackled, and just right before making the touchdown, and he was just falling, and he tossed the ball back, and the other kid made a touchdown. So it was a really good game. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Mr. Clerk, who's next?
Aaron Nelson.
Hi, Aaron Nelson. I'm in the city. I bought a derelict sailboat several years ago, and that I've been working on it, and that it had been sitting so long that the blocks underneath it have deteriorated, and that I'm concerned about it, and I wanted to get it reblocked. And so I contacted the masters, our masters, your masters, whatever. I contacted them, and that they said that I needed proof of insurance to reblock the boat, to have the city lift come, and it's about an hour's worth of work that they lift the boat up. And so I have a friend, his name is Trent Quackenbush, at the law offices of Blake and Fulton and Quackenbush, and he said that he couldn't find any ordinance about proof of insurance to use the city lift. And so I contacted our masters again, and that I asked them what ordinance it was, and they gave me the Code of Ordinances, Article 3, which this is in regards to moorage, and that I didn't know what moorage was, and so there's definitions in the Code of Ordinances, and so the definition of moorage was, according to the Seward definition, moorage means the process of mooring or the state of being moored, and when the context requires the fees for such acts imposed by under title, which that didn't make any sense to me, and it didn't tell me what moorage was. So Wikipedia tells me that a mooring is any permanent structure to which a seaborne vessel, such as a boat, ship, or amphibious aircraft, may be secured. So I asked my friend Trent again if the city lift would be considered mooring. And that he said, no, because it's not a permanent structure. And so this is all the ordinance is all in regards to the mortgage. So Article 3, 7.10.345 is what I hate calling them masters, what they tell me to look up. And so that's the insurance clause, and that I wrote it down here. So this is what it says under insurance. Under mortgage, it says, all owners shall provide the city proof of liability insurance covering the vessel and owner's employees, invites, guests, and passengers. The amount of liability insurance required shall be specified on the mortgage agreement covering that vessel. If the vessel carries passengers for hire, owners shall have the city named as a...
Sorry, that's your 3 minutes. There will be time at the end of the meeting if you want to continue.
You gotta be kidding.
No, it was stated.
It's the rules. You didn't even hear me out. So am I done? That's all I got.
For now, yes.
And then what? Are you guys gonna talk about it?
We don't respond at this point. There's 3 minutes allowed. You can speak at the end of the meeting for 5 if you'd like, if you stick around or come back.
Am I gonna get any kind of response from you tonight?
In the end of the meeting, there will be administration response, most likely, or us.
So funny. That's all you get.
Mr. Clerk.
Phil Kaluza?
Thank you.
Phil Kaluza, inside city limits. Madam Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. To begin with, I do not believe we need to sell our profitable and functioning electric utility. Chugach Electric has been providing Seward wholesale power for like 60 years. It has been helpful and reliable partner over that time. Just as I believe we can continue to own and operate our water and sewer utility, public works, the harbor, police, and fire department, library, museum, and all the other services Seward provides, I believe we can continue to own and operate our electric utility as a profitable and sustainable enterprise. Currently, our electric utilities provide the city with $2 million of revenue every year to help support all the programs the city funds. But if for whatever unknown reason we must sell our electric utility now, why are we offering to sell it to Homer Electric, which has one of the highest electric rates on the rail belt in the natural gas region, yet you choose Homer over the other comparable offer from Chugach Electric, which would provide us the lowest cost power on the rail belt. The difference between Homer and Chugach rates and an annual cost to all the Seward area ratepayers is around $3 million. So why has the council selected for us secret meetings, the electric utility that will cost our local economy an increase of $3 million a year in higher electric rates over Chugach? Higher electric rates will impact our lower income residents and small businesses the hardest. High utility bills do matter. I hope the council will finally explain tonight their reasoning behind your choice of electric utilities and tell us exactly what we're going to get for the extra $3 million from Homer Electric. I encourage everyone to seriously consider whether to vote to sell our electric utility or not. We can always sell later under more transparency. But if we sell now, there's no going back. We sold our goose. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Dana Paperman.
Yeah, you have to like narrow it down. Where do these rules come from?
Good evening, Mayor McClure, council members. My name is Dana Paperman. I reside in Seward, and I'm also the director of the Seward Senior Center for the last 22 years. Thank you for hearing our story tonight. Hanging out at the Senior Center is a regular occurrence for many older Alaskans here in Seward because we share similarities to high school, but with better food. Seniors and senior centers are interdependent. and rely on each other to create a healthy community that engage community citizens, taking into consideration quality, longevity, and inclusiveness. Senior citizens are a valuable part of your economic engine and spend a majority of their income with their respective community. For decades, seniors have turned to senior centers to meet their local health and wellness, mobility, and nutritional needs, as retirement checks leave less to live on at a time of rising costs in medical care, fuel, energy costs, and as the normal outrageous food costs that don't equal a person's income on Social Security or SSI. On any given day, senior center staff are advocates for seniors and play a part in public safety as we request wellness checks from police officers and state troopers, as well as reports onto adult protective services and filing critical incident reports, keeping our local older Alaskans safe in their own homes. Senior centers are the cornerstone of senior services, and we offer staff training that's necessary to support seniors, financial partnerships that range from Older Americans Act to the City of Seward that also supports us on an annual basis. On a weekly basis, we turn to Medicare, Social Security, AARP, Meals on Wheels of America, State of Alaska Aging, Disability, and Resource Centers, Independent Living Centers, Adult Protective Services, again, keeping seniors safe in our community and educated. Our home and community-based services afford us the opportunity to serve Meals on Wheels. Currently, we have 22 consumers who are homebound, receive nutritional services 5 days a week. We also are on a hiatus with transportation, working diligently to get that back up and running for seniors. We have then, up to this point this year, have helped 12 different individuals enroll in Social Security, 5 different individuals to enroll in Medicare, and many information assistance opportunities in heating assistance, public assistance, many programs that are available out to older Alaskans. And currently, we are really focusing on digital inequities of older Alaskans, as more medical providers are providing telemedicine, and many seniors have limited access to the internet and affordable connectability here in Seward. So we are striving hard to get caught up with that game. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity to hear some of our challenges and our positive outcomes that arise from compassionate care that's efficient, affordable, enriching to the seniors it touches every day. The City of Seward is an integral part of our successful 45 partnership that empowers older Alaskans. Thank you. Please come to our 45th anniversary celebration, Thursday evening, 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Nobody else has signed in.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak? You know the routine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. Rob Montgomery, outside city limits. I just wanted to share my disappointment with the Electric Ad Hoc Committee last week released information publicly on a proposed electric rate increase for Seward customers. A proposal the committee developed with inaccurate assumptions and calculations. These inaccuracies are outlined in a document shared with you as a laydown earlier today. A document created by Seward's rate consultant, Mike Hubbard, an expert with 44 years of experience in rate making, who shared his own proposed rate increase options with you on September the 11th. Unfortunately, this type of information from the committee is misleading. It's also worth noting the committee's proposed rate recommendation was never within the scope of work requested by council. Setting rates for electric service is a specialized practice that requires a high level of expertise. No one on the committee, to my knowledge, has that expertise. What's also unfortunate is that Mr. Hubbard would have been glad to make himself available for a meeting with the ad hoc committee to provide them with direction and answer their questions had they only made the request. Instead, the committee moved ahead with a rate recommendation that is flawed. It's created with inaccurate calculations and assumptions. And I guess just asking for assistance from Mr. Hubbard would have been the more responsible thing today to do had they just done so. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone else in the hall? Come on.
Rissy Casagranda, inside city limits. I have 2 letters to read on behalf of the Electric Ad Hoc Committee. Dear Seward Council and City Manager, after hearing the line of questioning in the September 11th meeting regarding Curtis Thayer's presentation, we want to clarify some incorrect assumptions that were made. We were and are still excited to hear from Mr. Thayer and learn from his expertise. There were many presentations that were initially planned to hear while we produced our deliverables that Council had asked for. After our first presentation with Mr. Hubbard went over an hour because we had so many questions, we soon realized presentations would stand in the way of the Council's deliverables in a timely manner. Our only regret is that we were unable to make the decision quickly enough and ended up canceling on Mr. Thayer at the last minute. We decided in our meeting at noon, September 11th, that an apology was in order, and a letter has since been sent to Mr. Thayer apologizing for canceling on such short notice. Hopefully this will help you understand our decision. It was in no way because we didn't want to learn from the field. Sincerely, the Ad Hoc Committee. Next letter. As members of the Electric Ad Hoc Committee, we would like to thank you for bringing us together to ascertain the feasibility of retaining the Seward electric system and the costs for changes proposed to the current electric by the general manager. As a body of 8, we were fortunate to collectively have well over 100 years' experience with finance and Alaska utilities. With our membership, we had individuals with experience on utility boards and city councils and with careers in banking, utility operations, and energy science and engineering. We have absorbed and digested a lot of information and would like to provide more sequential 3-minute citizens' comments to share our detailed results to more than 3 minutes comments. We have thrice requested a special meeting with council to openly discuss our work and findings and have not yet succeeded in arranging a meeting due to miscommunications in council's busy schedule. We would appreciate an open dialogue and work session with those who may have questions or disagree with our results in order to resolve any differences in data or its analysis. We believe our work is essential for determining how to handle the utility after the election, whether the sale succeeds or fails. We have compiled all of our documents so they can be entered into the public record for easy access. We recommend that you and city administration decide how to proceed. If you would consider changing ordinances to create a utility board focused on the work required to manage the utility for 2024. We suggest that our balanced budget be considered as a starting point for public discussions on future of the utility in 2024. We discussed dissolving our committee in our last meeting and voted to continue in your service. We foresee much work ahead regardless of the outcome of the election and hope that you will call on us to conduct further research and analysis and give an added perspective to the discussion.
Thank you, Rissy.
This is for the clerk, and then there's one for that's for public record.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else out in the hall that wants to speak? Rissy, could you check for me, please? No? Is there anyone else in the room? Okay, I'll close the citizen comment time and move to the approval of the agenda. We're still passing these down. The agenda and the consent agenda. I'd ask for a motion and a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of tonight's consent agenda and agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any changes to the consent agenda or the agenda? Councilmember Calhoun.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to remove Resolution 2023-108 from the consent agenda.
Okay. Remove that and place it down in item 10 following the last resolution there. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So that's removed, and I would like to place Resolution 2023-110 on the consent agenda if I don't hear any disagreement.
Which one was that?
110?
Okay, so we'll place that on the consent agenda. Are there any other changes? Give you a moment. Okay, Mr. Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on the agenda.
Okay, voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda with Resolution 108 removed and Resolution 110 added. Osenga?
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Barnwell,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and approved on the consent agenda are the September 11th, 2023 City Council regular meeting minutes. Resolution 2023-110, authorizing the city manager to purchase a new John Deere 6110M utility tractor and flex swing rotary cutter from Craig Taylor Equipment Company, plus 10% contingency for a total amount not to exceed $183,223.13, utilizing the Sourcewell contract AG Tractors 110719, JDC PG1P CG70, and appropriating funds. And the appointment of the canvass board for the 2023 regular municipal election. And that is everything.
Okay, thank you. Trying to find, oh, there it is. All right, we have a proclamation, and I've asked our honorable vice mayor to read it for me because my vote's scratchy tonight. And Dana, do you want to come up and receive this? It's for the senior. Stand up here so people can see you, okay? Come on.
Hi.
There, that's good.
Hi, Dana. Okay, this is a proclamation for the Senior Center? Okay. Whereas September's Senior Center Month, we honor our older Alaskans and the tremendous impact they have made in helping build this great state of Alaska, and whereas older Americans contribute their time and wisdom to make our community stronger, more informed, and better connected, they are our loved ones, friends, mentors, essential workers, volunteers, and neighbors, and whereas older adults have always been a vital source of strength and resilience in Alaska. During the pandemic, many seniors came out of retirement to serve their communities in healthcare and education roles, filling job vacancies in critical shortage areas, and whereas, moving forward, we must ensure that older Americans have the appropriate resources to maintain their independence and stay connected to their communities, and whereas, we celebrate their achievements and recommit to providing our elders with the support and services they need to thrive and age with dignity, and whereas this year we celebrate the 45th anniversary of the Seward Senior Center, a federal and locally funded program to support the well-being of older Alaskans through meal deliveries, nutrition services, fitness, educational programs, Social Security, and Medicare counseling, and whereas during the senior month, let us pay tribute to the seniors who raised and guided us throughout our lives, and let us renew our commitment honoring their contributions by giving them the fullest care, support, and respect they deserve. Now, therefore, I, Vice Mayor John Osenga, on behalf of the Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby call upon all Alaskans to celebrate older adults and elders for their contributions, support their independence, and recognize their unparalleled value to our great state of Alaska, dated this 25th day of September, 2023.
Yeah, and you can say, this gives you a chance to say more about your big party on Thursday.
Oh, so we're hosting our 45th anniversary at Gateway. It's open to the whole community, Thursday, 6 to 8. And the theme is disco, because 45 years ago, it was disco. So if you got lame or wigs or anything in your closet, pull them out before Halloween and join us. We'll be going out door prizes about every 4 minutes. Our community's very supportive. Thank you again.
Thank you, Dana. All right, city manager report.
Yes,
You can find this on page 6 of the packet.
thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been an exciting first few weeks as city manager. Today is officially my start of my third week. And I've been learning a lot and familiarizing myself a lot with the city and the different departments that we have. In the manager report, you'll note that I passed the ICS Incident Command System 100, and since writing this, I've also done the 200, 700, and 800 So those requirements are all set, and then I'm on the wait list for the 300 and 400 in October. I might not make it onto that, but I will get those done as soon as possible, kind of in conjunction with a bigger project with Jason and Chief Kreitz of making sure our incident command and emergency responses are up to date. So looking forward to that down the pipeline. Some things to highlight from this report, since I know it is long and tough to read through sometimes, a big packet. Just to note that the jail was closed on 9/16, but we've been working closely with the chief in Spring Creek, and there's been a few wrinkles to iron out here and there, but the community needs are being met, and we're meeting weekly to make sure that that continues on. Some two cool programs coming up. The library is hosting a solar eclipse program starting 9:30 and then culminating on the solar eclipse on 10/14. And the Touch a Truck is on September 30th. So any kids who want to go out and have some fun with some big trucks, that's always a really good one. And I've seen some questions in the community about the Lane Boulevard being closed, and that's a water main replacement that will bring residential services to those lots down there. And then another big subject this week that I heard a lot was that there was an issue with the noon siren. So that was adjusted. We installed a new system, and they didn't have our sound that was made in that new system, but Chief Kreitz worked closely with the borough and the vendor to get it back to what we were used to. So thanks to that. Thanks to them for getting that done, and that's all I have, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bickling, did you have anything to add?
No, it's time.
Okay, questions, comments for this city manager? Okay, good report. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple presentations now. The first is a presentation of the city 2022 financial audit report by Altman Rogers and Company. And we've heard from him earlier, and now we're going to hear again. So if you want to introduce yourself also.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council. My name is Grant Todd. I'm an audit partner with Altman Rogers and Company, a CPA firm in Anchorage, Alaska. Our firm is contracted to perform the financial statement and compliance audits for the city of Seward. This is our fourth year performing these audits for the city. So I stated before, our firm is an independent auditing firm. We're hired by the city council to audit the financial statements of the city. It's management's responsibility to provide us with the general ledger. That's our job to give opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements themselves. We also perform a federal and state single audit, compliance audit, because the city expends over $750,000 of federal and state dollars. Our audit is risk-based, meaning we take information based on past history, look at prior year financial statements, prior year findings. We talk with management before the start of the audit about any possible changes or any changes, turnover, things like that within the city, and we use that to determine our audit approach. One of the biggest portions of our audit relates to the testing of internal controls. We take a random sample from cash disbursements and payroll, and we also look at material transactions, which covers the expenditure side of your profit and loss of the city as a whole. We also test the internal controls over cash receipts, utility billings, harbor billings, and we also look at material transactions related to inflows or money coming in, which covers the revenue portion of your profit and loss. We also look at material journal entries that are posted throughout the year to make sure that nothing is happening. Once a transaction is coded to your general ledger, we want to make sure that there's internal controls and behind the scenes if there's any transactions that are moving revenues, expenses, or balance sheet items to make sure that they're proper as well. During our testing of all those systems, we take a sample of 40 from each of those transaction classes. If we find 0 errors, it gives us about a 90 to 92% confidence that the internal controls that are in place are working as designed. Once again, an audit does not give absolute assurance, and when we give our audit opinion, we say the financial statements are materially correct, not absolutely correct. The errors that we did find relate to the utility billing system. We covered those before, but in the compliance report section of the financial statements, which I believe are publicly available, or they should be publicly available, it gives a detail about the findings that we identified over the utility billing, but we noted a number of instances of, or a number of errors related to, kind of compliance with the billing system as written in your code. But other than that, like I said, we found no other errors that we would consider finding as it relates to the financial statements. As I stated, the audit went smoothly. This is our 4th year. This is the smoothest the audit has gone. I tip my cap to Suley and the finance department. They've made definitely some strides over time. This is Suley's 2nd year being in charge of the audit. And once again, as I pointed out, appreciate the expense the city's incurred to get some outside accounting assistance. In the financial statements themselves, which once again are available to the financial statements, I would point out that the city received, I believe the first time in 2 years, the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting due to work of management. They put out an ACFR, which is the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report that is submitted to GFOA, and it's essentially graded to make sure it meets the requirements of the Certificate of Excellence. So, once again, appreciate the work the management puts forth in that regard. And so in the financial statements, once again, are publicly available on page 1. It's our independent auditor's report, which once again is addressed to the city council because hired and worked for the city council. We report to you. So it says we've audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of Seward as of December 31st, 2022. In our opinion, based on our audit and the report of other auditors, the financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the city. And to clarify, as I said, based on our audit and the report of other auditors, KPMG audits Providence Seward Medical Center. We take those financial statements and consolidate them into the healthcare facilities enterprise fund for your financial statements based on the operating agreement that you have with Providence. Once again, you received an unmodified opinion, which means there was no modifications to our audit opinion, and it is the best opinion you can receive. One note that I'd like to point out to the general public, if they're looking at the financial statements on page 2, emphasis of matter paragraph on the top of page 2, it says, in 2022, the city implemented GASB statement number 87 related to leases. And so if anyone is looking at the financial statements year to year, you will see in 2022 there's a large lease receivable and associated deferred inflow related to those leases in the financial statements. And so the city is the owner of a number of properties that are being leased out to other entities, and accordingly a receivable has been booked based on the lease terms over the life of the lease, and an associated deferred inflow, which is just revenue that's coming in that will be deferred over the life of that lease. So if anyone's looking at the financial statements, that's the largest difference between years. Starting on page 5 is the management discussion and analysis. It's very helpful for users of the financial statements. It takes, essentially 80 pages of financial data and kind of consolidates them in Word form, gives some comparison data year over year. Statement of activity, statement of net position, shows 2 years worth of data, and it's only placed in the financial statements where you can see that data in dual year presentation. So the financial statements start on page 17. The statement of net position is essentially the balance sheet of the city as a whole. Shows all of the city's assets, liabilities, deferred inflows, outflows, and net position. And then once again, this includes all activity, short-term and long-term. Kind of the key number, bottom of page 18, unrestricted net position for governmental activities is 11.2 million. Unrestricted net position for business type activities is 41.1 for a total of $52.3 million of unrestricted net position. Page 19, the statement of activities, essentially the profit and loss of the city as a whole, including all short-term and long-term activities. Governmental activities, and I should clarify, governmental activities is the general fund, special revenue funds, and capital project funds. Business type activities would be your enterprise funds and internal service funds. Your governmental activities had a change in net position of $581,000. Business type activities had an increase of 7.1 for a total of nearly 7.7 million increase in net position. Again, this is all activity of the city, includes revenues and expenditures or expenses, and then changes in long-term activities such as depreciation expense, any capital assets that are purchased during the year, that expense is taken out put on the balance sheet, so those assets will be depreciated. Changes in your long-term liabilities for the net pension liability and debt payments. Governmental funds balance sheet on page 20. Again, for the general fund and your capital project funds and special revenue funds. Bottom of the page, third line up, unassigned fund balance in the general fund is $8.78 million as of December 31st, 2022. And that unassigned fund balance represents 50% of current year general fund expenditures and transfers out, and 60% of current year operating expenses. City code specifies that the general fund should have a operating fund balance, unassigned fund balance of 3 to 6 months. You're on the upper edge of that. It's a slight decrease from last year's unassigned fund balance in the general fund. Page 22, profit and loss for the governmental funds. The general fund had an increase of $617,000, which is a decrease of $742,000 from the prior year. The non-major funds in total, all your special revenue funds and capital project funds, had a decrease of $285,000, which is a decrease of $1.5 million from the prior year. And overall, all your governmental funds had an increase of $330,000, which is a $2.2 million decrease from the prior year. Balance sheets for the proprietary funds on page 24. As I said, you can see a new large lease receivable of $5.8 million, which is new in the current year. Again, the number that everyone likes to look at. Unrestricted net position in your major enterprise funds. The electric fund had an unrestricted net position of $9.4 million. Harbor had an unrestricted net position of $700,000. SMIC, $243,000. Healthcare facilities, $18.3 million. And your non-major funds, $9.1 million. So total across all your enterprise funds, $37.8 million.
Can you wrap it up within a minute?
Sure can. Real quick, change in net position across all your enterprise funds was an increase of $6.9 million. Majority of that came from healthcare facilities, $5.8 million. Harbor enterprise funds of $4.2 million. Most of the Harbor's net income or increase in fund balance was capital contributions of $4.3 million related to the construction of the North Harbor dock, which will be capitalized, placed into service, will be depreciated over 30 years. And that's the high-level overview.
Thank you.
Yes.
We heard a longer overview earlier. If you look a little glazed over, it's like we've heard this twice plus more. So, but that was very good, and thank you. Very thorough. Are there any questions for?
Madam Mayor?
Sure. Councilmember West.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, both the first one and the second one. Could you please highlight real quick regarding the electric utility, the issues that were found in the billing and which companies were found to have issues? How many years have they had issues, and were they undercharged or overcharged?
Sure, I'll give you the best that I can. Yep.
Thank you.
So in the finding, which once again is available, so I should say when I say it's public available, I believe it's on the city's website, and it's also loaded up to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, which is publicly available to anyone that has an internet connection. There's a compliance report. It's not in the act for itself. Financial statements it's in the compliance report, and that should be uploaded as well. So during our testing of internal controls, as I stated earlier, we randomly took a sample of 40 transactions across all billing transactions, I believe. Off the top of my head, I believe there's 3,300 to 3,600 transactions a month bills that go out over 12, so it's a pretty large number. We take a sample of 40 of those at random, test those, and we also, as part of our procedure, since we had problems, we've given a material weakness each of our 3 previous years. We also took a sample from transactions that had problems in the previous year. So during our testing of the internal controls, we noted 5 instances of charges not being billed to customers as a result of net meter readings, and learned that the entire population of 30 net meter customers were not being billed at various times throughout the year. We noted 2 instances of charges for lights not being updated from the previous amount. 1 instance for an industrial client being charged incorrectly by ERUs for sewer as opposed to actual usage as mandated by the tariff. 1 instance in which a customer was categorized as the incorrect type of entity. 1 instance in which the customer was charged duplicate amounts, and one instance of a base rate being charged with no additional charges or usage as required by tariff. So that's a summary of the findings. As I stated, for the entities that had problems in the prior year that we retested, we've looked at seven entities or 7 different billing clients. 3 of them had been corrected. There was 4 that had errors year over year, and you asked for those clients. St. Peter's Episcopal Church is set up as a residential client. We noted the city shop was being had duplicate charges. It was being billed twice for water, twice for sewer. Mama Love Inc., a meter had been installed, but the cost of water and sewer was just at the base rate and no additional amount for usage was included. Icicle was being charged 6 ERUs for sewer instead of being metered. The tariff specifies that industrial is to be charged for metered services, and our ERUs are for residential, small general, and large general. They're also not being charged the base water fee. Once again, caveat being that once again, the financial statement audit is as of 12/31/22. So the transactions we looked at were for January 1, 2022 through 12/31/22, and we would have taken these at random or haphazardly throughout the year. So I cannot specify, again, just for the public's knowledge, that these are problems that still exist today. They existed based on the time period that we looked at the bill. So it could have been January of 2022, it could have been December of 2022.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your scintillating report.
You're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm sorry everyone else missed it.
Thank you.
Okay. Once again, thanks for having me back.
We have a second presentation, 10-minute presentation from Homer Electric Association by Brad Janorski. And there's pictures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council. I've met most of you before, but for the record, my name is Brad Janorski, General Manager of Homer Electric Association, and obviously outside the city limits. So, just want to give you folks a quick overview of what we've talked about in the past. So, there's only 12 slides. I'll go through them pretty promptly. You've seen some of them before, and so I'm not going to belabor the point on many of them. This slide you've seen before talks about the deal that we discussed last spring. Nothing has changed. In fact, you've seen the slide. The only change is partway down the upper left-hand quadrant, price adjusted for sewer infrastructure, and I'll get into that in a second. The rest of it you've seen before. The deal, other than changing some dates in there, the original asset purchase agreement remains unchanged. And as I talked about last time, rates were expected to increase when we left Chugach in 13, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Rates have since stabilized, and as time goes on, they are becoming more and more competitive. In addition, our strategic plan, we continue to look at in great detail every 3 years. Our 3rd year is coming up, so the second week of October, our board will get together and figure out. The big thing that they're asking themselves today is, what are we going to do in the future for wholesale power supply? So, in fact, somebody asked me earlier today, Brad, have you been following anything going on in Seward? I'm like, absolutely not. I'm busy. Just like the rest of you, I'm really busy, and it's summertime. So the only thing I know for sure is fall is coming. So with that, I know there are a couple of myths that have been floating around. Both either I've heard them or somebody has told me they exist, and so I'm going to address some of them today and certainly leave time for questions that you may have of myself. With me as well, John Jungling, who you've met before, and Carrie Ann Baker. Both of you met 2 of my staff folks before. One is I heard HCA doesn't own a battery energy storage system or a BESS in Soldotna that we discussed. That is absolutely, obviously, it's a myth. Now, we do own it. We own 100% of it. And if you're not sure, you can talk to our CFO. She will promise you we own it. It's on our balance sheet. The second one, HCA plans to close the Fort Raymond power plant. These are all myths. It is certainly something that we have never talked about. I envision never shutting down this plant, the same reason we have 2 facilities in Soldovia, 1 in Port Graham. In fact, the one in Soldovia, we replaced the older one a couple years ago. The oldest, Unit 1, will get replaced next year. So we invest heavily in our generation, and it's one of the things that we're very proud about. So we have no misqualms about shutting down this plant, and I think you heard that from us last spring as well. But I am told there's rumors out there. It is not true. Seward's 14 to 18 million invested in assets will not be recouped. The asset purchase agreement very clearly says, based on the balance sheet of the prior year, plus any imprudent utility investments made in plant. So any investments you make along Nash Road, any upgrades you make to current substations, that will just get tacked onto the current purchase price. In fact, I heard the comment earlier about selling the utility to another utility. Seward's customers aren't selling anything. HEAs, they are becoming members of a larger electric utility, which is different. So HEA will pay for those investments. So we know going with an affirmative vote, it still needs to go through the Regulatory Commission. That takes time. The last thing we want is any of Seward's existing customers, or hopefully future HEA members, to be negatively impacted due to the sale. Seward employees are not protected after 3 years. Not true. We've been dealing with IBEW for decades. We've got 3 bargaining agreements today. We see no difference in this one as well. So we've got a good long-term relationship. There's been no, I don't know how we'd replace it. In fact, I'd like to continue to grow, and as you guys know, in all businesses, including ours, there's a shortage of talent. I mean, we pay well, but every industry across this country today is trying to get more people. The good news is our turnover's been very low. If you follow the national average, it's in excess of 50%, which is, to me, it's unheard of, but we're under 10%. Seward is not, myth number 5, Seward is not subject to provision of SB 123. If you're not familiar with SB 123, it's what the legislature created back in 2019, 2020, having to do with an ERO, Electric Reliability Organization. And you can see in the text what it did, in addition creating an integrated resource plan. It creates the reliability standards that, yes, you have to follow, just like Homer and Chugach and Matanuska and Golden Valley. We're all interconnected. There is no exemption to that. In fact, one of the co-sponsors of that bill called me a couple weeks ago, asking me specifically what changes we need to make to it, because at its current pace, its budget will exceed the Regulatory Commission of Alaska. And her response was, that's not what we intended. I says, I know, but this is a very dynamic industry. HEA does not make its own power. In fact, I heard this question come up recently. We have been producing our own power since 2014. Prior to that, we continued to operate a 40 megawatt frame 6, GE frame 6. The steam on the back end went to Agrium. The electricity went to Chugach so they could resell it to Homer Electric. In 2014, January 1st, we started creating our own electricity. Myth number 7 that I heard, HEA ended its Chugach wholesale agreement in 2014 without proper notification. Not true. HEA and Matanuska both gave, at that time, plenty of opportunities to Chugach. In fact, they had proposed to us joining them with the South Anchorage project, if you're familiar with it, putting on a 4th unit. We started down that path for a while and went, this isn't going the way we wanted. We want, like everybody wants, local control. And we weren't getting it. So in a 12-month period, Chugach lost 51% of their wholesale load. So as you had heard earlier, Seward is the only remaining wholesale customer of Chugach Electric. MEA and HEA both have left. MEA 12 months after us. HEA cannot guarantee a board seat? No, we can't. But our board passed a resolution creating another district, which would be from east of Sterling, which obviously includes the system. And the only folks, or at that point, if it becomes part of Homer Electric, the only members that vote on that representation, as is today within the district, are those folks that live, those members that live within the district. In fact, it's part of the asset purchase agreement, so I suspect the Regulatory Commission would make that mandatory. And that's all I have.
Boy, you timed that perfectly.
So, with that, it helps to have a clock.
This is why we do that.
Any questions?
Yeah, questions. Okay, we'll start with Councilmember Wells.
I have 2 questions, Madam Mayor.
You can do 2.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much to all of you. You've done an amazing job. And so my first question is, does the HEA make a profit?
HEA has, through the chair,
Yes.
HEA has margins as a not-for-profit cooperative. Any margins are allocated back to our members. Sometimes, and the board makes that decision. Sometimes they take a piece of those margins and allocate it to folks that were members or who bought power the previous year. Other times they go back to the oldest year, 30 years ago, and they retire all of it. If we get a loss, we carry that over to the following year, we don't allocate it, and then we take that loss the next year off of a margin. So historically, we've retired a lot in excess revenues that exceeded expenses. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you. And my second question is, the ad hoc committee has stated that, some of the ad hoc committee members, I should say, have stated that your power supply via gas is about out and your rates are going to skyrocket, whereas Chugach has more availability, more options, and therefore their rates will be more stable.
Great question through the chair. Right now, there's a movement to get all the utilities to buy from the same pool of gas, because what we're seeing happen, last time we went out for bids for gas, and you guys heard me talk about this in the past, we had one supplier. It's hard to negotiate with one supplier. So what the utilities are finding is, because gas molecules are a commodity, it is a direct pass-through to our members. And we are working, and the goal is, I choose my words carefully because you sign so many confidentiality agreements, you got to be careful what you say. Everybody that uses Cook Inlet gas, doesn't matter where it is in Cook Inlet, from existing wells is declining. You can talk to multiple experts, and not one of them will tell you that there's a shortage of gas in Cook Inlet, but they will tell you that production from existing wells is declining. We have worked out in that pool today is us and NSTAR, and as of when our current contract expires at the end of the first quarter next year, NSTAR and HEA will pay the same for those molecules. It'll be slightly higher than what it is today, but everybody's going to be paying more. In the next 5 years, we're all going to pay, I'll say 5 to 10, but I think it's closer to 5. All the utilities are going to pay the same thing for gas. In fact, if you talk to Fairbanks, they're like, we'd give anything to pay higher price for gas because it's still cheaper than diesel. So, short term, it's up in the air. It is a straight pass-through. But in the not too distant future, we're all going to be paying the same thing for those molecules.
Thank you.
Great question.
Other questions? Councilmember.
First off, thank you for displacing a lot of the myths I've been hearing, especially the one that you guys are still buying power from Chugach. My question is, why did HEA and Matsu leave Chugach?
Through the chair, that's a great question. And if I heard it correctly, is why did Homer Electric and Matsu Matanuska Electric Cooperative both leave Chugach Electric? I can't speak for MEA, but for HEA, I think one of the things, and I'm going on memory now because this is back in it's almost a decade ago. And I had to chuckle because I think I was the only one that caught the wisdom comment in the senior citizens, and I'm going, I split 2 molars off earlier this week, and my kids tease me about it because they say I'm getting old, and so wisdom stuck hard in my head with wisdom teeth falling out. And, but speaking for Homer Electric from my recollection, we started down the path. We wanted economies of scale, and it's hard to get that when you're rural, like we are. And eventually, we found out that we wanted to go into it eyes wide open as partners. And within about 4 to 6 weeks, it was very evident when we asked the manufacturer, where's the information? Like, you should have it because your partner's got it for a week now. So it continued to digress from there, and we decided, no, we're going to do our own. In addition, it gave our board the flexibility to be out from under a wholesale power contract. And instead, as we find competitive and reliable, to add some other sources to diversify. So we are currently looking at some solar projects. We are looking at some wind projects. We are looking at tidal. I will be honest with you, tidal's a ways out. I was really gung-ho 5 years ago, but that's, the technology it's a decade away. And anybody that tells you differently is probably not being straight up with you. So that's the best of my recollection, is we really did want to dictate our future. We got tired of being told what to do. One thing is that both MEA and HEA, we bought 51% of all the power they generated, and to my knowledge, we had 3 votes on there. 3 votes as members, and nobody on the board. So back then they had roughly 66,000 members. We were 3 members of that 66, and we bought over half their wholesale power. And I think that kind of capped it for my board.
Thank you. One more question.
My understanding is the rates are going to be going up. Did you explain why they're going to be going up for true gas? From your understanding of how the system works.
Through the chair, I know they filed a rate. They made a rate filing for interim refundable rates and permanent rates, and that is available through the Regulatory Commission of Alaska's website. All that information, when you're a regulated entity like Homer Electric, Chugach, Matanuska, Golden Valley, and NSTAR, our tariffs and anything we file with the commission is almost all of it's open to the public. So if I want to see what Golden Valley filed, I don't have to be a Golden Valley member. It's open to the public. It's no different than in the legislature if you want to see drafts of a bill. So I can't speak on behalf of Chugach.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Barnwell.
Yeah, a couple questions. One, in one of your slides you mentioned that your goal is to be increasingly competitive with Chugach. But you also mentioned about economy of scale. Obviously, Homer Electric doesn't serve as many clients as Chugach. Chugach, with its extra client, more customer base, their economy of scale has an advantage. How does that work for you guys? How can you be competitive with Chugach, given that information?
Through the chair, that's a great question. On economies of scale, I always say, if I want the lowest price of beef, I'll go live in Nebraska or Iowa. But Alaska has things that Nebraska and Iowa don't have. But we choose to live here anyway. In fact, somebody made the comment earlier about the high price of groceries. You want cheaper groceries? Move to Anchorage. I don't want to live in Anchorage. I think they will always have the economies of scale. But on the fuel side, as the question came up earlier from Councilman Wells, on the fuel side, eventually we're all going to pay the same price for those molecules. I think on the transmission side, on the wheeling side, Someday we're gonna get to that point as well, and I've explained that to my board. I say in the next 5 to 10 years, whether you're wheeling from shipping power from Nikiski to Kenai or Nikiski to Fairbanks, as long as this transmission system is unconstrained, it will cost the same. We call it a postage stamp rate. Just like if you want to mail a letter from here to Homer or here to New York City, it's going to be 50-some cents, same price. So we will never keep up with the economies of scale. However, we do have built in the flexibility our board strategically to add other things, like today we're 90% dependent on natural gas. So we are looking at other opportunities to help reduce that. I think I made that comment earlier that if you find a financial advisor that says put all your money into one stock, you should run. Every advisor will tell you diversify. And quite frankly, we're in the same boat. Guess what? Are you going to get the best return every time? No. But the goal is to get the best return over the long haul and still be able to sleep at night.
Okay, one more quick question.
Okay. You've mentioned that you're diversifying on your end, but for your customer base, how do you guys incentivize solar, wind, heat pumps? Do you have strong programs in relation to, say, Chugach even? I don't know if you can compare, but at least what kind of programs do you have that incentivize that for the customer?
Really, I always say if you focus on yourself, you don't have to worry about your neighbors. So we probably have the most successful net metering program in the state of Alaska. We are looking, we've got a rebate program, and you can go to our website and see all these. Rebate program for heat pumps, trying to incentivize heat pumps. In areas that are connected to the NSTAR gas system, which is most of our developed areas like Homer, Soldotna, Kenai, it's hard to compete. Although we put in some heat pumps, of all places, at our generation plant in the office facilities, we've got some heat pumps in place. We're really pushing them South Kachemak Bay, where the price of fuel, oil is much more, and they do not have availability of gas. So we're very active in heat pumps, net metering. I don't care if you want to put up your own wind turbine, you want to put up your own solar panels, you're limited by the Regulatory Commission to 25 kW, which will cover most homes. So we are very active in those areas. Does that answer your question, Councilman?
Yeah.
Okay. We kind of ran on. Is there any? Okay. Thank you very much for that. That answered a lot of questions for people, I hope.
Yeah, thank you. If you have more questions, please.
We know where to
call.
find you.
Or my staff. Answer anytime.
Thank you. I'm going to call for a 5-minute break. I've polled a few people, and we need a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll proceed with the public hearings. Yeah. So we'll break until 8:08, depending on which clock we're looking at.
Okay, we are back on the air, so to speak.
thank you.
Ready when you are.
Okay, we're back in session. It's 8:08. Thank you. By the way, if you see me passing notes up here, it's just to see if people need a break or not. That's what's going on. Okay, so we, having moved Resolution 108 to later, we're down to public hearings, and we have two resolutions for public hearing. The first one is Resolution 2023-100. This is going to be a real exciting one for you to read, Mr. Clerk, but you need to read it. Okay.
Resolution 2023-100, determining it to be in the public interest and necessary to proceed with the proposed improvement district for and benefiting lots 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, CR, CQ1, CQ2, CD, CF1, CF2, CG2, CP2, CG1, CP1, CO, CH, AX, AY, AZ, BA, BC1, BC2, BD1, BD2, BE1, and BE2 of the Forest Acres subdivision for an amount not to exceed $3,563,978.
Thank you, that was very well done. You'll find that on page 76 of the packet, should you care to read all that. I'd need a motion to approve and a second, please, to get this going.
I'll move for approval of Resolution 2023-100.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to defer to former Community Development and Assistant City Manager Jason for this one.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So this improvement district petition is from the same group that petitioned in March of this year. And although City Council did create a mechanism to be able to fund this type of development, it hasn't funded it yet. So as it currently stands, if currently approved, they would bear the entire cost of the development, unless council chose to go out for like bonding or something like that. So I've spoken with some of the property owners in regard to that. And so although the administration recommendation says to recommend, I believe that in talking with the clerk just beforehand, a majority have protested to turn this down. And so we do recommend that council vote this down because of that. But also too, this is something we want to make happen in the long term. And so we would like you to direct us to notify the owners when there is funding in there. And then also too, I don't foresee a lot of other neighborhoods like this coming up, but also just kind of save their spot and as kind of like the primary group in interest in getting that funding when it does become available.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add? Okay, I'll open the public hearing then on 2023-100. Mr. Clerk, has anyone signed in?
Nobody has signed in.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak? And if you do, you get up to 5 minutes to speak. And this is specifically on this public hearing.
Jazz Odner, inside city limits. I am the person who collected all the signatures for the petition again. It hasn't been super clear to me the steps in which we need to take in order to get utilities. The last council meeting I was at, I understood that the development reimbursement program would benefit applicants on a first-come, first-served basis. About a month or so afterwards, I heard from my boss, Norm, that council had amended Seward City Code 5.20, improvement districts, to read, "It is the intent of this chapter to permit the city, when funds are available, to pay for a portion of the costs of extending public utilities to the undeveloped property in order to incentivize installation of public utilities and property development within city boundaries." With this good news, I figured I should get the property owner signatures again and resubmit the improvement district petition so that our neighborhood would become an improvement district, since we aren't currently. After I went through this process again and resubmitted the petition, Stephen called me and informed me that if council passes this resolution, our improvement district, that we would be on the hook for 100% cost of utilities. because there's no current funding, there's no money in the DRP fund. With this new information, I realized I was one step ahead of myself and ask you, City Council, to vote down Resolution 2023-100. And then, yeah, perhaps we could have a city official notify all of us property owners when DRP funding becomes available. That way we don't miss out on our chance of funding again.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jess. Anyone else wishing to speak? It's specifically on Resolution 2023-100. Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. We've been advised to vote no, but with the recommendation to notify this group as soon as funding's available and to give them a priority on the funding for it. Councilmember Finch.
If I remember correctly, when this was brought up, when Jeanette and Stephen were here, we discussed possible locating some funding to add to the DRB, and apparently it hasn't happened, or?
That has, well, I could direct that to administration, but
No, we haven't found tangible funding sources yet, but we are still looking and hoping to fill that fund.
it will happen.
Yeah, it will happen, but not yet.
Okay, any other? Okay, so once again, the recommendation is to vote no. Are we ready to vote? Mr. Clerk?
Okay, voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-100. Osenga.
No.
Calhoun.
No.
Finch.
No.
Barnwell.
No.
Wells.
No.
And Mayor McClure.
No.
Okay, that resolution has failed.
Okay, thank you. And do we need to do more of a direction for you guys to notify? Okay, so you will be notified, okay? And we will find some money. Okay, our second public hearing item is Resolution 2023-107. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you read this one, please?
Resolution 2023-107, recommending the Kenai Peninsula Borough approval of the preliminary replat of waterfront tracts, Mariculture Edition, Tracts 1A and 1B, and waterfront tracts, Tract 2A, located at 201, 101, and 301 Railway Avenue, creating waterfront tracts re-subdivision, Tracts 1A-1, 1B-1, and 2A-1.
Okay, thank you. And that's on page 127 of the packet. I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
And I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2023-107.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration, tell
Thank
us
you, Madam
about
Mayor.
this.
I'm going to defer to Jason again to speak to this.
Thank you. And so it's probably most easily viewed on page 135 and 136 of your packet. Planning and Zoning did approve this preliminary replat. And so this is between 3 city properties. And this replat kind of does a lot of cleanup and takes care of a lot of businesses between the Alutiiq Pride, UAF, and the Alaska Sea Life Center. One, it provides legal access to the Sea Life Center through their back access there. You can see on the yellow marking there, they didn't actually have their access. That was UAF's access, so we went ahead and switched that over so they actually have their own legal access to their property. The UAF property in the middle there, and the Alutiiq Pride facility, they decided to do a little land swapping between them. And then, because we are selling the Alutiiq Pride property, we don't normally put easements on our own land. And so we wanted to make sure, because we're selling that and we do own the land around that, we do put utility easements in there and also access easements through that property, so that way, because they do service the properties around them. And so it did do that. And then also too, we wanted to make sure that we have access easements kind of on that south border so that we can have access to the outfall for maintenance. And so it was just to ensure that we have the accesses and utility easements that we need for that property, and kind of doing some cleanup on the other two.
Good work.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add? All right, then I'll open the public hearing, and this is public hearing on Resolution 2023-107. Is anyone wishing to speak?
And nobody is signed.
I'm sorry. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council. Are there any questions or comments? This seems reasonable to me and a lot of work. Okay, are we ready to vote? We appear to be ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-107. Wells.
Yes.
Barnwell.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution is passed.
Okay, that moves us to new business. We have no ordinances, but we have a couple resolutions. The first is Resolution 2023-109. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that?
Resolution 2023-109, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with McKinley Fence Company to construct a new security fence around the Spring Creek substation as part of the electric utility's larger transmission infrastructure project in the amount of $87,943 and appropriating funds.
Thank you. You'll find that on page 138 of the packet, and I need a motion to approve and a second, please.
I'll move to approve Resolution 2023-109.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Great, so this would allow us to enter into a contract with McKinley Fence Company to expand a new security, or to put a new security fence around the Spring Creek substation on Nash Road, speaking badly, to accommodate an additional transformer. So it would be entering into a contract to allow us to build a new security fence, and Rob is here to answer any additional questions.
Okay. Did you have more input or just answers?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you come up, because I'm seeing a hand of a question here. So, Councilmember Wells, is this for Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Montgomery. So if we purchase this $87,943 fence, would that be part of the cost repaid by HEA if the utility was sold?
That is correct.
Thank you.
That was the question. Okay, are there other questions for Rob while he's sitting here? No? Questions for admin? Are we ready to vote? We appear to be ready to vote.
Okay, voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-109. Wells.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Barnwell.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that resolution is passed.
Okay, moving right along, we are at Resolution 2023-111. And when you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you read that, please?
Resolution 2023-111, authorizing the city manager to purchase one 2024 Ram 2500 single cab long bed truck from Lithia Dodge Anchorage under the City of Seward procurement process with associated upfitting from Trailercraft Alaska in the amount not to exceed $55,785 plus 10% contingency and appropriating funds.
Thank you, and that's on page 163 of the packet, and I need a motion and a second, please, to approve.
So I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2023-111.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite Tyler from the Parks and Rec Department to speak to this.
Hello, Honorable Council and Mayor. My name is Tyler Mallory. I'm the Deputy Director for the Parks and Rec Department. So we're currently looking at the fleet of vehicles we have for the Parks and Rec Department. We have 7 vehicles currently in service. 6 of them are a 2010 or older. We have a 2018 F-250 that we use for plow right now, and that's the only plow truck we have available. We have a 1999 Dodge Dakota in our fleet still. We have a couple 2000 vans, a 2007 F-150. So we just don't have very many vehicles, especially vehicles that are capable of plowing with everything that we have to plow. So we're trying to start updating our fleet and working on updating our fleet, and so this is the first step in that to get us another plow truck, hopefully before the winter's over. So,
okay.
Any questions?
Thank you. Questions for Tyler or anyone? Sounds like we need this. Are we ready to vote? We appear to be ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-111. Calhoun.
Yes.
Barnwell.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Next, Resolution 2023-112. Mr. Clerk, when you're ready, could you read that, please?
Resolution 2023-112, scheduling a special election to repeal Resolution 2023-88 and Resolution 2023-89 to be held on Tuesday, November 28th, 2023.
Okay, thank you. And you'll find that on page 170 of the packet. I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2023-112.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll ask administration, but also our attorney, Sam Severin, is on the phone if we have questions. So,
Yes, so thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution would schedule a special election to repeal Resolution 2023-88 and Resolution 2023-99, and that special election would be held November 28th of 2023. And this is in response to the city clerk receiving two petitions for referendums to repeal the two resolutions that placed Proposition 1 and 2 on the upcoming ballot on October 3rd. After receiving the petitions and certifying them, the clerk has submitted these resolutions for the first regular meeting after certification to schedule an election. Code language states that the referendums go on the next regular election, but the referendum didn't meet the required legal noticing time of 20 days. Absentee voting began on September 18th, and although all city code timelines were met, we were not able to get this on that upcoming election. And as Madam Mayor said, our attorney Sam is on the phone to answer any additional questions.
okay, thank you. So bring it back to council. Questions, comments? I know I asked the question, what does this mean? And then we were given a pretty lengthy answer, so I think we understand. And the time of setting the election was a very narrow window. That date was not arbitrary. It's a Tuesday, which we like elections always on Tuesdays. And so, any questions, discussion, or are we ready to vote? I'm seeing no hands. I guess we're ready to vote, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-112. Calhoun.
No.
Wells.
No.
Barnwell.
No.
Finch.
No.
Osenga.
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has failed.
Okay. Moving along. The resolution that was removed from the consent agenda and now appears is Resolution 2023-108. When you're ready, Mr. Clerk, could you please read that?
Resolution 2023-108, authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for janitor services for the Seward Community Library and Museum with Sasha's Spick and Span in the amount of $83,800 and appropriating funds.
Okay, that can be found on page 63 of the packet, and I need a motion to approve in a second, please.
So I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2023-108.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Administration, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to invite our Library Director, Bailey Saylor, to speak to this.
Hi. So as y'all know, this position originally was for one person to come in and clean, and it has not happened. And so now with $83,000, we would be able to pay, I think it was 6 people to come and clean our building every single day, which is huge. Our building is the main one that the public comes into and sees. A lot of children are there every single day. And we would like the facility to be spotless for them. Right now, staff has tried to pick up the slack, but we cannot keep up, especially with the amount of people that do come in and utilize our building every day. And I can answer any more questions you have about the process or anything like that.
Okay, don't go away. Councilmember Calhoun removed it from the consent agenda, so I'll let him start.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just so everybody knows, I do support this. I just felt that it was a good idea to get an explanation out why we were having to go to a contract for that, because not everybody may know the history of all of that. So that's why I pulled it, just for that discussion, so that we could do that.
So, yes, ma'am. So, yeah, originally, the contract for a different company was $75,000 a year. At that time, they were not able to fulfill the contract, so we already had a position, a PERS paid position that was under the Public Works Department. And so we used our money and along with Park and Rec, because we were replacing two contracts, which were the amount of $110,000 for both of those contracts, to clean both buildings. And we thought we could hire one person to do that job along with maintaining the building, which is too much to ask, especially for what we pay. And we have not been able to keep somebody in there to fulfill the requirements or to even just keep up helping clean the building at any length of time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just so people understand that if we were to offer a salary to somebody to do this equal to that, it would end up costing us a lot more when you get down to the benefits and retirement and all that kind of thing. So it makes a lot of sense to contract this out as it used to be, so that it can be properly maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember when we changed it, and it seemed like a good idea at the time, but, you know, it's always good to be flexible, and when things don't work, go back and fix it. So I think that's what this is doing, and I believe this company will be very good at keeping things up. Any other questions or discussion? No? We're ready to vote on this, Mr. Clerk.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2023-108. Barnwell.
Yes.
Finch.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
And Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay. And I think that takes care of all of the, well, we didn't have any ordinances, all of the resolutions for tonight. And that brings us down to other items. And the first other item is a discussion, well, it is to discuss the agenda format for citizens' comments and public hearing comments. And the clerk has compiled some information on page 230 that I would direct you to. I'm the person that brought this forward originally. And it's just a discussion. A citizen had made a very valid suggestion that oftentimes people have to sit through a long meeting just to get to the point where the public hearings happen so they can testify on the public hearing. And perhaps it might be possible to adjust things so that public hearing testimony could appear earlier. One of my suggestion was, in talking with the clerk, to perhaps allow in a new section right after the 3-minute public hearing, or citizen comment time, I mean, item 4 on our agenda, add an additional slot for 5-minute public hearing testimonies on public hearing items. It'd have to be worded carefully, but that would be your only chance. And people wouldn't get 2 shots at testifying, you know. But then if they didn't want to sit through the whole thing, they could say, I want to testify on X public hearing, and then we would have heard that, then they could leave and go about their business. So there are other suggestions that have been made. And one of the possibilities, as we discuss it, is just not to make any change at all, and that would be valid. I would not be disappointed. It was just in response to a citizen request, and it seems reasonable to me, but that's just my take on it. So Mr. Clerk, did you want to speak to any of the possibilities that you put in there? Maybe
Sure.
that might be valid.
I feel like we've all seen it happen at least once where a citizen attempts to comment on a public hearing item and then is told to stop and wait for the public hearing, and so then they sit in the audience for what could be 45 minutes to maybe an hour and a half. And we were just looking at possible ways to streamline it. And I added a couple examples here just to get the conversation going. We could allow them to speak to the public hearing during the 3-minute comments, and it would just be recorded, separately as a citizen comment rather than the public hearing, but you could at least hear what they had to say. Or we could do citizen comments, burn through those, and then go straight to the public hearing sign-in sheets and just go through those right afterwards if they wanted to speak at the beginning of the meeting. And then they could be on their way and go home, eat dinner. So those are just a couple suggestions for the sake of discussion. I'm sure there's many other options, or like the mayor said, we can make no changes. But.
Right. And that's totally, so what do you guys think? Councilmember Wells?
I'm not opposed to changing it to help those folks out, and they can get on with their evening.
So which option would you?
Either option, any of the options
okay.
that change it. It does seem like at the if we get it done first, then that's positive for the community.
Vice Mayor.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I was to have to choose one, I think I'd want the public hearing comments to be separate. Then they're recorded separately, right? Instead of mixing them in with a 3-minute opening, I would just want them separate, just so that they are recorded separately.
Councilmember Calhoun.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I might have missed this, I apologize. Is there the possibility, and it may sound like a duplication, would there be a possibility to have a period for public hearing comments right after citizens' comments and still have a public hearing time period like normal for those that maybe can't get here that early for a meeting or something like that?
I'm sorry for interrupting. That was exactly my suggestion.
Okay.
So if they would have to choose, they could either have their 5 minutes early on, or they could have their 5 minutes, but they couldn't have both. But yeah, it would still maintain the regular, that was my suggestion.
Right, they wouldn't get 10 minutes total time. They could either choose to speak at the beginning or wait until the public hearing came through on the agenda.
And it would be noted.
And it wouldn't really extend the whole period of time for the meeting, because they would have spoken for 5 minutes at one point anyway, but they only get that one shot.
That was my intent. It wouldn't change anything in the total time at all. They just get a choice if they had to go, pay the babysitter early or whatever, right? So, yeah. Councilmember Barnoff.
I really like the idea of more public involvement, but I do worry that if we opened it up, if we did 36 minutes of citizen comments on a hot night, say people are really fired up on the topic, and we jump into public and we do 5 minutes a person, we could be sitting and listening to comments for an hour or hour and a half. So one idea that we could float is, if they want to do an earlier comment, we could do 3-minute citizen and 3-minute public prior to the later opening session, where they could have their 5 minutes of full dialogue.
But then they would get 8.
No, they only get one shot. So they either take the 3 beginning of the session, or they wait and do the 5 minutes later. It just decreases our liability to be sitting here for literally hours. No offense, but
Okay. I have a question, but Councilmember Calhoun, go ahead.
Well, I understand what Councilmember Barnwell is saying, but if you have 10 people that want to speak on a public hearing item, and 5 of them speak right after citizens' comments, and 5 of them speak during public hearing time, it's the same as 10 of them speaking before the public hearing time.
Right.
It's
the same amount of time.
Actually, it is. I'm just saying that maybe it'll incentivize more people to speak.
Well,
sorry, I sounded like I don't want people to speak, but I just
think that's good though. I mean, it depends on how you see it. Okay, Vice Mayor Osenga.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My only issue with, I think Councilmember Warrenwell brings up a good point. If we wind up having a hot topic going and we have our 36 minutes, or usually it's not 36 minutes of opening comments, and then we do the public hearing comments, before we get into proclamations and awards, city managers' reports, city clerks, city attorneys, presentations, whoever might be doing presentations, I'm afraid we might start getting into an area where these people, so we're basically making other people wait if something comes up. And so either one person waits or the next person waits. We're not really, so now we're going to make somebody else wait besides. And I think that comments, if they want to make comments and they can't make it to the meeting or wait for until we get to these public hearings, then I think that they have the ability to send their comments to us through the city clerk and their email to us, are they not? I mean, or they're presented. So if they can't be here and wait for their time, they can have other ways to make their comments.
They do, but we don't read those anymore.
No, we don't, well,
I mean,
but we have
read them, but we don't read them. I'm sorry, the clerk is not, you know what I mean, we don't read them out loud. They are not read out loud anymore like we did during COVID. That's what I meant to say. Councilmember Finch.
Why not just take citizen comments and public comments all in one for 5 minutes? Whether it's citizen or public comments, you get 5 minutes a shot.
Well, that's another option.
I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a citizen comment or public comment going on a resolution, you got 5 minutes.
Vice Mayor Osenga.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I would ask is then, are we going to change the total amount of time?
Yeah.
Because we only have 36 minutes that we've allotted for this. We started adding other things into this, then I'm afraid 36 minutes isn't going to cut it.
Councilmember Finch.
3 minutes for citizen comments and 5 minutes for public comments.
But
That's 8 minutes a person, so if you do throw both in there for 5, and they don't have to sit here and wait till everything goes through. Like I said, they can say and go home and have dinner.
So I brought this up.
Or
Councilmember
leave like
Calhoun.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think, you know, what the Vice Mayor has brought up is actually a very excellent point that some of us didn't think about. I didn't think about. I'm not talking for anybody else. Because if you have 10 people that want to speak for public hearing, then that's another hour that your proclamations and those folks have to wait. So, you know, we're trying to accommodate one group while punishing, if you want to call it that, because they have to sit here and look at us, punishing another group, you know, and making them wait. So, you know, when you really think about it, the system that we have, we've been doing it for a long time. And
Well,
maybe-
let me just say that this is exactly why I postponed this when we had only 4 of us up here at that one meeting, because, or 5, whatever it was, because I really needed to hear from everybody, and I think I'm hearing pretty loudly. Maybe we shouldn't make a change right away, but Councilmember Finch.
Because I've seen the proclamations have to wait for a long time. Why not do the proclamations right off the bat?
Well, see,
Get
this
them
is,
done, and they can leave or stay, and then public comments.
I've gone through a whole lot of possible reordering of everything, and no matter how we do it, something comes later. You know, so I'm more than willing to say, let's just keep it as it is for now, unless anybody really is pushing this, because, you know, it's worthy of a discussion. You'll see tonight, we had 2 public hearings with 1 person speaking. That doesn't always happen, though. But Jazz still had to stay a while. We have made up modifications, you know, taking it down to 2 10-minute presentations. That was something I suggested some years back, and we all love that. So instead of having infinite ones, so you know, changes can happen, but I think maybe I'll just suggest we stick with how things are unless anybody feels really, really strongly at this point. Okay, do we need to have a vote on that, or just just a general consensus, okay?
Yeah, general consensus is fine.
I think we
No
got that.
action.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for listening to me, because, change is sometimes good, and change sometimes doesn't work out as well, so that's cool. Last item for discussion is to discuss the future of the Electric Utility Ad Hoc Committee. And who wants to lead this off, or should I? Administration, do you want to speak to this?
No comment, no.
Okay, so the discussion, I don't know what we have in the packet here, actually. So the discussion is that it appeared that, and twice now, we've gotten deliverables. Tonight, we got another packet of information from the ad hoc committee. At our last meeting, they delivered some results and also spoke. And I would entertain a motion to sunset the ad hoc committee at this point, if that would be appropriate to the council.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And anyone want to speak further to this? Vice Mayor Osenga.
I think as mentioned, thank you, Madam Mayor, you did mention, they did actually present their deliverables at the last meeting, and I'm not sure, I didn't notice that we had that second packet today.
Receipt.
Oh, I did get it, you're right, I'm sorry.
We haven't had a chance to read it.
Okay. I appreciate all the work that they put into it, and I thank them for all the effort that they made, but I do think that, I don't think there's any reason for them to continue, and I am in favor of basically sunsetting them and thanking them for their
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
work.
And Mr. Clerk, is that the correct terminology, sunsetting?
Yeah, sunset or disband.
Disband? Would disband be better? I'll change the motion. Maybe disband. With thanks. Are there any more discussion? We should vote on this.
Ready to vote? Okay. So voting to disband the Seward Electric Utility Ad Hoc Committee. Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
And Mayor McClure?
Yes.
Okay, that motion is passed.
Okay, and we have materials from them that we need to read through and digest, and I would say that we don't know what's going to happen until the election happens, and then further discussions will incorporate everybody's input, and we'll have, more input and use their information, and thanks to them. Okay, we have no informational items and reports, and so this is the time now for citizen comments, where there's no sign-in, but you have a time limit of 5 minutes to comment on any subject. So raise your hand and come on up. And we'll need your name, yeah, you can come. And we'll need your name and inside or outside the city limits again, and you can finish your comments.
It's Aaron Nelson, and inside the city. And that, this is regarding me needing insurance to reblock my boat. And that, so when I called down and I asked what the insurance was for, they said that it was to protect the city lift. So then I asked if they had insurance on the city lift, and that they said they did, and that they had insurance on their employees that operate the city lift. So then I asked why I had to have insurance on my boat and what coverage. They said it didn't matter what coverage as long as I had coverage, and referred me back to the I gotta get my piece of paper to know what ordinance it was. That, and so then they go on to inform me that every single boat that comes into Seward on a trailer, any boat has to have insurance, and that they enforce that. And that includes my boat to get reblocked, and that's why my boat has to have insurance on it for the 1-hour job of lifting it up and reblocking it. And so like I said, my friend the attorney, he said that he couldn't find any ordinance anywhere or anything in writing that said that it was mandatory to have any insurance on a boat in a vacant lot, you know, just to get reblocked or to use the city lift at all. And so I don't know if I'm here to ask you the question of where is the ordinance that says I have to do that, and where are they coming from saying that I have to do this. And I don't know how this works here. You know, when I call down and ask, I just get stonewalled, and I get the same responses every time. You know, it's just what they do to people, and that everybody, see, Ace Hardware in town sold the lot, and so now all these boats that have been sitting there for years, they have to do something with these boats, and so every boat needs to either get moved or whatever, and now they have to go through this insurance policy thing, and that every insurance policy is requiring appraisals, and that, so I mean, it's this huge expense, and there's no ordinance. There's nothing that says that you have to have insurance to use the city lift, but they're pushing it, and that there's so that's where I'm at, and so I don't know what else to say. But you know, and I hope you guys comment on it. I hope you guys give me an ordinance or a rule or something that says that I have to, outside of, you know, I just have to. So I guess thank you.
Thank you for waiting too, by the way. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seriously? Yes, I will. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Becky Dunn, Inside the City. I want to thank the nice man in the gray truck about 8 o'clock that let me in on a long line of traffic, and to remind people that if you're headed home from out of town, to hit 3rd Avenue, because 4th is being paved, no, sorry, backwards. Take 4th, because 3rd is being paved. And, speaking of traffic, to a reminder not to block side streets and driveways and businesses. I have the business out of mile 3.5 for those of you that don't know, feed store, garden center, lumber. Anyway, it's taken a huge hit on my business because people headed into town are stopped bumper to bumper, even though they can clearly see there's a driveway there and it's a business and it's open. And sometimes I'll like wave at them and stop, and they're like, oh, and back up, or they'll apologize or be nice. Sometimes they'll tell me off. Sometimes they'll just pull forward and flip me off. And John, I don't see what's so funny about this. I couldn't make my house payment. You have been extremely rude in the past. Sue, would you please talk to him about that? It's not funny. It's not funny.
I apologize. That was not directed for the comment where someone was flipping you off, okay? That was not what that was directed to.
Well, what is funny about that? What is funny about my whole comment?
Can we just make your comments, please? I didn't see him.
No, he's done it before. I have, anyway, usually people are nice, and sometimes they just pull forward anyway. There's now signs that say, please don't block driveway, but they get moved or taken, and I've had deliveries not be able to be made. Suppose you find that funny too. Second of all, I am here with town hall meeting flyers, and I'll just read it. September 28th, yes, I know that is the day of the senior citizens' 45th anniversary. We did not, I just am in charge of the advertising it, and with the local radio station, we're going to air it and handle the sound system. And some of the people organizing it were not on Facebook, so I went ahead and Facebooked some of the flyers if anybody wants them, but I understand you all are aware. And anyway, it just says September 28th at 6 p.m., Ray Building and KM Ray Building, 123 3rd Avenue, Town Hall meeting. 99664 for awareness. Come and listen and ask your questions to a panel of professionals regarding the sale of the sewage electric utility. So I just thought that I would mention that. And I do strongly recommend, speaking of the utility, they did not get to make their deliverables. They attempted to do it in 3 minutes before the customer, in the comments before the meeting, and were shut off and accused of hijacking the meeting. They put a lot of work into this. They're highly educated people, and I feel they didn't get to make their deliverables. I would strongly recommend a work session with them in the city of Seward. I think that they deserve that. And anyway, just strongly recommend a work session. I know everybody's busy and there's been a lot of meetings, but, and there is a perfect example is scheduling this the same day as the senior meeting. I mean, it's a huge decision. Homer Electric spent well over $700,000 advertising to influence this vote. The city spent well over their $25,000 budget. And so I just kind of feel that it, I don't know, I just would like to see a work session between the two, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Linda?
Linda Paquette, outside city limits. I wasn't going to do this, but I feel like something needs to be set straight for the record. Outside city limits, did I say that? There was a meeting scheduled, as you know, with the committee. It was scheduled by the mayor for the 18th of September. And the precursor to that was when we had the meeting at the library on the 5th, which was a Tuesday. The discussion was the deliverables had been done and that we wanted to do them, but we didn't want to wait till the 25th. And nobody in the room, I guess, felt empowered enough to think that we could request a meeting. And so what we did was we requested to get on the agenda for the meeting of the 11th. But we had missed the deadline. And when we were discussing it the night of the 5th, that came up, that there was a good chance we had missed the deadline. And the decision was that the backup plan would be to come do it in the 3 minutes, break it up, each different one. But then, and so the agreement was, because the chair was going to be out of town, that I would call the morning of the 6th and speak to the clerk, which I did. And when the clerk said, no, you've missed the deadline, I just told the clerk the plan, which is, all right, well, we'll just do it during 3 minutes and we'll break it up and we'll probably take 9 minutes. And I received a call from the then Assistant City Manager, Stephen, about a half an hour later saying, this isn't how council would want to do this. They would want to be able to ask you questions, and I mean, they could suspend the rules, but that's not ideal. And the best thing to do would be to use your next committee meeting, the 18th, and have a joint session with council. And so, as you all know, the mayor scheduled that. I don't have an explanation for what happened after that. So, although we know that and that was communicated to the chair and the committee, I'm quite sure. And so, why the choice was to go ahead and do it in the 3 minutes, I wasn't privy to that. And so I apologize for whatever chaos has come out of this whole situation. But the bottom line is you were looking for 5 numbers and we got them for you. They gave you a bunch of other stuff too, and you know, if any of it's useful, great. If not, sorry. So, thanks. I don't have anything else. I just wanted to clarify that for the public more than you guys, because you guys really all know what happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone else wishing to speak? Last chance. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council and administration comments and responses to citizen comments, and I will begin with the city manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank the council for approving several contracts and equipment purchases tonight to assure that we will continue giving great service to the city of Seward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Assistant City Manager Bickling.
No comments, thank you.
No comments, okay. I'll start with Councilmember Finch.
I'd like to thank Marie Gage for bringing positive interaction with locals to the public and city council, because usually it's all negative. It's nice to hear something positive. And I'd like to thank HEA for publicly addressing the myths and the false truths that are being spread. We now have it in writing and verbal if anybody wants to question it, YouTube and watch it. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnwell.
Can't speak very well tonight. For the gentleman that has the boat problem with blocking the insurance, I have a boat, and I last year had to get new insurance and go through that rigmarole and stuff. Suggestion, Alaska USA gave them a random call, and I reduced my insurance by 200% at least. It was just crazy.
I'm never going to have insurance ever on that boat.
I'm sorry, we can't,
Sorry,
it's not
we
a
can't
dialogue
but
time.
that's just a suggestion.
I didn't know there was rules like that.
Yeah.
There is.
You were talking to me, I was talking to you.
Yeah, so just you might want to check that out. Also, we are going to vote October 3rd, which I think this is the last meeting, so I just encourage people to get out there and vote. I really appreciate Homer coming in today and giving that final presentation. Those guys have just been over the top, in my opinion, willing to get here, communicate, and be transparent. I think they're a quality outfit, and I do fully support us selling to HEA. I think it's a good move. I think we're in a position where we've had a good run with this utility, but I just don't think the city is the right entity to manage it going forward, and I think HEA is a good entity. I think they're more of a rural focus. Chugach is more of an urban focus. I think those prices will even out in the long run, and I think we have a really good contract, and I fully support this sale. So, thanks.
Councilmember Calhoun.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. First off, I'll echo Councilmember Barnwell's comments on that. Also, although it may not actually be the last one, if this would have been the last meeting for Liz DeMoss, I'd like to thank her for her service on the council and to the community of Seward. I think she's done a great job, and I wish her well in her future endeavors. And this month is the 100th anniversary of the American Legion Auxiliary Unit 5. So if you see some of those auxiliary members, congratulate them on the longevity, although I don't believe we have any that were actually there at that time.
So you don't look at them.
But it's just part of a great family organization. And I think I will stop there.
Okay, well, we'll catch you later then. Okay, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few comments. First, we all received a letter from a Fred, am I allowed to say their name?
Yes, I'm getting nods.
We all received an email from a Fred Grant, which I found to be odd because it sounds a lot like what Mr. Aaron Nelson was stating, so I'm not sure who I'm actually speaking to. However, I did speak with the harbor master, Norm, and he gave me quite a few comments, and so did Nancy. And you have to be able, in order to use the lift, you have to be able to prove you own the boat.
What?
And if you do not prove you own the boat, the city cannot move your boat. Because you could be moving a stolen boat.
But how do you know?
It's very, very,
You
Chief?
do background check on it.
Excuse me, you can't comment now. You had your chance, so just listen to.
But can I comment when he's done?
No.
No, there's just a one-ended conversation. Go ahead with whatever you're gonna say. Are you gonna read the email? I don't know what you're talking about.
I think we might.
Okay, it's time for me to leave, I understand.
Just.
This has been a joke. Are you gonna do something to me?
Okay, Councilmember Wells, go ahead and continue, because I think we want to hear what the Calvert has, even if he doesn't want to hear.
No, you have to leave.
I'd be happy to finish, thank you. So after first speaking with our harbor master, this has been an ongoing issue with this particular gentleman. And again, I don't know if it's Fred Grant or Aaron Nelson. It was a group email that was sent out to multiple people, and one of the email addresses goes to a divorce attorney, and I'm not sure if that person was supposed to be here or not. However, again, you have to be able to prove that you own a vessel in order for the city to legally be able to move the vessel. That just seems like we cannot come to your house and tow a car if you can't prove it's your car. Seems pretty self-explanatory. Proving that you own a vessel also proves that you pay your property taxes to the borough. Because if the vessel is registered in your name, then you're clearly paying your property taxes. You cannot get insurance on a vessel that is not registered to you, that you cannot prove that you own. So, I understand the gentleman's comments and his level of frustration. I would also like to note that there are multiple voicemails from this gentleman screaming, being verbally abusive, and harassing our city employees. And I, for one, and I believe every single person up here, will not tolerate that, and I would not expect a single one of our city employees to tolerate that type of, any type of abuse whatsoever. Secondly, comments that were made regarding the cost of money that HEA spent to inform citizens. I'd like to comment on that really quick, such as APOC reporting requires you to report your staff time in dollars, and it always makes it look like they spent more than they actually did. And so that's an easy thing to figure out if somebody actually wants to dive into that investigation. Regarding the ad hoc committee, it's clear that the ad hoc committee had an agenda, in my opinion, was to do nothing but block the sale of the utility. Members of the ad hoc committee have spread misinformation to the public, both verbally and via an op-ed in the Seward Journal. I also find it so disheartening to know that 6 of the members attacked a single member that disagreed with that committee. Lastly, the same 6 members tried to vilify and discredit Mr. Robert Montgomery, which is clear if you watch any of the meetings or if you attended any of the meetings. I'm just blown away. So as the other members as the other council members are thanking the ad hoc committee, I'm saying I'm extremely disappointed. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Rosinga.
Well, I'm not sure I can. Okay, so first off, go Seahawks. I mean, the football team's been doing really well. I have to say I did not make this last game. Sorry that I missed it, but I'm very proud and very excited that they are doing quite so well. I don't know that they've had a schedule of wins like this, consecutive wins like this in their entire existence. We did not have football here when I was in high school. Liz, of course, I would just say it was an honor to serve with her on the council. Was this tonight her last meeting, if I'm supposed to understand correctly? I thought she had one more after this, but I enjoyed time with her. She was, I think she was an excellent council member. I think she added a lot to the council, and I would just thank her for her time and effort. And I will end by stating that I was smiling, and Becky did yell at me for smiling. I was smiling, I fully admit it. She had made a comment where her driveway to her business had been blocked, and that she had gone out and asked them to move, and they politely gave her a wave and moved. That's what I was smiling at. I thought the humanity of her going out and asking someone to move, and they did it with a kind gesture and gave her space. That's what I was smiling at. Unfortunately timed came the bad comment where someone flipped her off. I'm sorry. That's what I was smiling at, not the flipped off part. I was smiling that humanity still exists in this town. And so, I apologize for the bad timing of what she saw. I will try to be more careful, I suppose. But thank you, everybody.
These are strange times, aren't they? You know, I just have to, in relation to that, my 6 years on the Borough Assembly, the Borough Clerk was very, very adamant about the fact that we sit up there, this was at the Assembly, and never show emotion. You know, you don't side with one side or the other side, and I think I'm pretty good at that, although I've been accused of rolling my eyes occasionally in the past. But, I mean, it's really hard sometimes to sit up here and show no emotion. Like, you see somebody out there, you wave, and then you get in trouble or something. So, people are just a little testy right now, and, you know, there's a lot to be testy about. As we all know, even though the weather's good, we're dealing with this endless traffic issue. And you know, the paving is wonderful. I watched him. I stood out there right by the sow and cub behind Safeway. I walked over just to see how it was going from my house, and so the bears and I watched the paving, and it's remarkable to watch that stuff. And we're going to have good roads, and this paving will end, and we've got to be kind, and that goes all the way across. But anyway, what I wanted to say was I had the best time since the last meeting because I got to welcome the Realtors Convention. And I also got to welcome the State Pioneers Convention. And both of those were wonderfully attended events where I sang welcome to people that were smiling back at me, and I could smile. It was really cool. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. Football team's amazing. I'm not one to tend to go to football games, and I couldn't this weekend, but that's really, really good. Congratulations to the Senior Center. Unfortunately, when they asked me to come and welcome them, because as mayor I get to do that, and I guess I'm getting pretty good at it, that's the night I have community choir if anyone's interested, and also I'm the president of RBHS and we have our meetings, so I'm really double booked on Thursday the 28th, but I encourage people to go. This was a good meeting. I thank the council for being here. And I want to remind people, if you haven't voted already, to vote on October 3rd, because we do have 2 council seats open. And I'm giving you one last little moment. Mr. Clerk, you got something.
I just wanted to comment that it was Jody Kurtz's son, Hunter, who did that lateral play that Marie Gage.
I had no idea because, of course, I wasn't there, but Marie's been talking about that everywhere. I've heard her say that multiple times. Go ahead, Jody.
Too? So the lateral coach Tyler here, deputy director, Parks and Rec director. So one of the things, and I didn't actually get to see the actual play because I was short and standing, but I did see the touchdown, and the kid he threw the ball back to was a senior, and I believe that was the last senior that scored a touchdown that night, so all seniors got to score a touchdown.
Oh,
so
nice.
It was
Thank you.
a really cool play.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, we can all walk away feeling proud and smiling tonight, right? And with that, I'll adjourn the meeting at 9:12.